Who's hugging the sword? Who is that? Is that us?
Could that be Catherine?
I don't know.
It's unclear. The one problem with having everything in black and white is that as soon as it's colorized, it's a little bit harder to tell who's meant to be who.
Yeah.
Especially when everyone's wearing the exact same outfit. For people like me who rely on outfits to differentiate people from one another, let me tell you, this has been hell. Anyway, we just had a big, fun little moment at the end of last episode. I think it'll be fine, though.
Yeah. We saw a vision come true, huh?
Yeah, we did. We absolutely did. Unable to bear it anymore, I finally screamed. Ah! I heard booming metal boots against stone. Fearful that it was the beast bearing down on me, I turned to flee, but I got tripped up on my habit. I stumbled to the ground and knocked my head against the stone so hard that I could see stars. I groaned in pain and struggled to find my bearings, but I was quite dazed. After a few moments of scrambling, I realized that there was a thin strip of light next to me in the darkness. At the sound of chairs scraping was heard, shadows began to pass over the bright line. Is this the, because we knew there were people in the Misericorde.
Yeah.
Before we encountered Flames and Goatsman. So I'm guessing that's what Hedwig is looking at here.
Yeah.
And I recognized it was candlelight leaking from underneath the Misericorde door. Why do I bother? There was some panicked fiddling with a latch, and so this door locks. Interesting. And then the door finally swung open. Interesting. So after their discussion about chess and nothing else, it looks like the two of them are...
Did I go over my theory for what
that they were just talking.
is?
I don't know if you mentioned it or not in the sode, but that it seems pretty clear that they were talking about getting booze.
Or at least that was my theory.
Yeah.
That what they were talking about was getting alcohol for this little Misericorde party.
Yeah.
That would explain why in that one dialogue, I'll bring it to you in the...
Yes.
Because they were referring to a specific place, and the place was this, and couldn't say so. And the reason they were talking to Flora, right, about it originally and getting into a kind of heated debate is because this is the first time she has the responsibility of looking after the cellars.
Yep.
And
so now it's on her to...
Yeah, now it's on her, and they're trying to convince her to do it when, like, previously it was the old ladies who were like, sure, no one will miss a bottle of wine here and there.
Makes sense.
And the reason it's called chess is because the soup
is really
into
chess.
And
like,
by calling it
all of
chess,
their talking points,
yeah,
are from the soup. Like the specific person they name dropped was the one the soup seemed to be interested in.
Yep, the specific book, the specific author.
Yep. So they're
That's
going
my
with
theory.
that because they know they hopefully the soup won't get sus about it. Anyway.
So that makes chess a red herring for the murder stuff, but explains why it would be a secret anyway.
Yeah. A few of the sisters huddled around me. Adela was holding a candle and looked by far the bravest of the group.
Hedwig, are you quite all right? Whatever is the matter?
There's an intruder. I lifted a hand weakly to point down the hallway where I had seen the ghastly apparition. Adela took a few steps in that direction, but I lunged forward to grab her frock. No, they're armed.
Armed?
Look at that face on Catherine with a K. Yes, there's a monstrous figure at the end of the hall carrying a sword.
What should we do?
Marta and Charity appeared at the Misericorde's doorway. Interesting. So here's a bunch of people that presumably weren't the ones playing the role there. They might have been in on it, but here's a whole bunch of people who weren't on stilts at the end of the hallway with a goat.
Yep. Excuse my awful hearing, but did you say you saw someone with a sword?
Oh, heavens above. I thought we were done with that sort of nonsense. Adela tugged her robe out of my grip and was cautiously walking down the hall. I dragged myself to my feet and made to follow her, the rest of the sisters who had spilled out of the Misericorde in tow. So there were other people there that we hadn't seen.
Yep.
Okay.
Tell me everything that happened, Sister Hedwig.
I heard someone knocking on my door, and when I stepped out to investigate, no one was there. Oh, so that's why she left her room. I don't know why that wasn't clear to me in the last episode. In the last episode, I was like, why was she leaving her room? But no, someone specifically knocked on her door to get her attention. Got it. So I left the dormitories to see if they'd gone down the hall, perhaps. And then I saw someone at the end of the hall, carrying a weapon and with a goat in tow.
Hold on, a goat?
Yes, and then they raised their sword and the torches blew out. Aw, crumbs, I would have been scared out of me wits. I was. I still am.
What happened next? I'm dying to know.
Do you think Catherine buys this, or is...
I don't know.
That's a weird turn of phrase, right? Like it seems like she's either patronizing us or... I suppose it must have been a he, the more I think about it. He lit his sword aflame and beheaded the goat, but not before pointing straight at me. A threat was leveled against me directly.
Beheaded a goat, you say?
Yes.
This is a rather strange story, Hedwig.
I understand, but you must believe me. We had reached the end of the hallway, which split in two directions. A large door to the surrounding wall of the abbey was open to our left, wobbling slightly in the wind and creaking softly.
Where did this swordsman kill the goat, Hedwig?
It would have been, well, here, just about. I gestured around myself in a circle, but as I looked at the stone floor, I realized that there wasn't a speck of blood to be seen. Interesting. I wonder. Eustace was very keen on us not knowing why they had why certain plants were kept in the garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we just saw here seemed very directly pulled out of Darcy's premonition.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there was some substance or something that made us suggestible.
I don't know.
Something that, like by priming us in a certain way and creating a certain scenario, they could cause us to see something that wasn't there without necessarily having to go through the whole rigmarole of setting it up.
It'd be a disappointing twist, given that there aren't chemicals that make you see a specific hallucination.
No, but you can like in a way of like by priming her with certain ideas, right? By specifically implanting that idea. Maybe ideas that it doesn't even need to be a specific... I'm just thinking out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Because, how else do they fake this? Did the goat actually bleed?
Probably not, given that we don't see it.
Because did the torches go out before that happened? Like, could they have just made a dramatic motion, and then in the moment, all the lights suddenly get blown out?
Yeah, isn't that precisely what was described? Raises the sword for the beheading, and then all the torches blow out.
Yeah, okay.
And then she screams and panics and flees.
Okay, so it would be reasonable. So as long as she didn't flee towards the people putting this on, it would be possible to make her see. I guess then, what's the logistics of getting all the torches out at once? Is there a way to do that?
I don't know.
That's the only part then that really beggars belief at the moment.
Squirt gun.
Oh, this? We use it for watering the garden.
Because we also suspect that someone has been poisoning Hedwig.
Maybe. It's a theory we brought up.
It's a theory we've been bandying about based on, like, her vom.
Are you feeling quite all right, Hedwig?
Oh, I wonder if this is the Gaslight Brigade now. Because what would you achieve by doing this? Scare Hedwig? There are other ways to do that. But what this does is make Hedwig an unreliable reporter. Makes it so that way, like, her word can no longer be trusted. Gives people a reason to be like, oh, no, she sees things. Like,
It'd be surprising if just about everybody was in on it.
Not about it. I mean, you don't have to have everyone in on it, but just to like, what could they be trying to accomplish by doing this? Oh, you must have been seeing things, dear. No shame in it, mind, but there's all sorts of odd things I've convinced myself I've seen in the dark. And you're in an unfamiliar place and all, and... No, I saw it. It happened right here. Everyone was looking at me with a mixture of concern and annoyance about now.
Can we go? It's bleeding cold here.
Adela's candle blew out. Everyone yelped. The door that had been easing back and forth in the nighttime air had suddenly slammed shut in the wind. The noise echoed throughout the hall with bone-rattling power.
Christ almighty, that just about took my poor heart out.
Is everyone all right? Okay, so I guess this is a precedent that the wind can both close the door and blow all the torches out in the hallway.
Yep.
I was quite shaken myself, but I soon realized that everyone else was chuckling.
I'll admit it, that was a pretty good one, Hedwig.
A good,
Absolutely fiendish. You are a very convincing actress.
I was truly bewildered. In the darkness, I could just barely see Marta clutching her chest and catching her breath, but she flashed me an approving smirk. Catherine was attempting to center herself with deep breaths between exasperated chuckles. Adela's face emerged from the darkness in front of me all of a sudden. She had her hands on her hips, and she was looking at me in mock fury.
We must watch out for her in the future. Interesting. So they think we are pulling
One on them.
one on them.
But clearly it's someone else setting this up. Or it doesn't, I guess they could be in on it to help sell this part of it. But yeah, like this.
It'd be weird because how could you convince someone?
Not if there were two
What would-
people working together. Someone here in order to drive the conversation the way they wanted, and someone to actually make the stuff happen.
Okay.
Maybe a third person to play the role of or unless they could find a way to do it at the same time. But yeah, like if you had two people that were like, let's fuck with Hedwig, you know, like do the hazing, right? Anyway,
What's going on out here? We heard screaming.
my eyes were slowly adjusting to the darkness. I could see that some more of the sisters had emerged from the dormitories, some wearing night clothes.
Nothing to worry about. Hedwig just scared us all witless with a little prank. Oh, do tell. She gave that most convincing howl to draw us out of the Misericorde, and then cooked up an ingenious story to lead us down here and keep us occupied until the door slammed shut. It gave us all quite a fright.
No,
Oh, that's good. What did you use? String? Not a trace of twine here. She must have known it'd bang shut sooner or later in the wind. Lucky guess. Hence the cock and bull storytelling once we got here. You can spin a yarn, Hetty, I'll give you that.
Not half.
That's impressive, Hedwig. Hello. What's all this then?
Are we having a party in the hallway? A hallway? Is that it? A halty? Come back to me.
The rest of the sisters had caught up. I realized that nearly everyone was here. Catherine, Flora, Adela, Marta, Charity, Margaret, Moira, Darcy, and Eustace were all clambering around me in the hall, engulfed in an orb of candlelight. All except... where's Angela?
Probably busy seeing if she can fit an even bigger stick up her backside. Who cares? Consider it a mercy that she isn't here, honestly.
Angela, I feel like, has to be the red herring, right? Because she'd be the immediate one to suspect that she's not here, but I think it's probably... Because they even gave part of the game away there, as long as you have someone, like I was saying before they said it, someone to drive the narrative and keep the conversation going, right?
I'm not sure she would find this so funny.
I swallowed nervously. The narrative that this had all been some kind of grand prank of mine had been taken hold so hard and so fast that I couldn't possibly push back against it. A happy accident, I suppose, given that it was clear as day. There was no blood at the end of the hallway where I'd seen the goat beheaded, and no mysterious figure waiting for us brandishing a sword to chase. So I guess we know what they stole the sword for.
Perhaps.
Yeah, in which case that means either Eustace is in on it.
Wait, we didn't know someone stole a sword.
Yeah, we did. Or
it was deliberately put away.
Yes, it was right. So now,
So if this is that sword, that means that someone would have had to have access to the sacristy.
right. So either Eustace gave it to them, or they took advantage of her or something.
Yep.
But either way, Eustace is the one to prod here, because she's at most 1 degree removed from the people that did this.
We should probably get you back to bed, lest the Superior finds out you've been organizing practical jokes in the middle of the night. Yes, she's been a bit touchy about that sort of thing lately.
Oh.
Yes, although I expect she was more worried about us hazing the newcomer, rather than the newcomer hazing us. Oh, that reminds me. Hedwig, did you like my prank?
Your prank?
Everyone looked at her as we walked back towards the dormitories in a huddle.
Yes, I knocked on your door and then ran back into my room.
Okay. So either Darcy actually did that, but why? Again, this puts Eustace under the spotlight here, because Eustace seems like someone that could convince Darcy to do something without a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah.
A small titter rose up from all the sisters. Dearie me.
Oh, silly. Eustace didn't want me to, but I did it anyway.
He was mostly worried you wouldn't make it back without being caught.
I'm faster than I look.
Or knocking something over.
It was very funny, Darcy. You gave me quite a scare. I forced a smile as best I could, but inside I was screaming. Were the knock and the horrid apparition 2 separate events? How was that possible? It was hard to accept, although...
Not half the one you gave us.
Yeah, I don't think I buy that those are separate events.
Yeah, it'd be surprising. Someone would have to be just waiting around out in the hallway.
Yeah, I no, that seems like the lead up to someone trying to prank war on Hedwig here. Yeah, despite but if Darcy's straight up admitting to it, then that means, as far as Darcy's aware, that nothing was wrong with what she did. If Darcy's straight up admitting to that, that probably means that Darcy believes that that was the extent of her involvement.
Perhaps.
Again, I would really love to talk to Eustace about this. Got a bunch of questions for her. We had arrived at the Misericorde door, still hanging open into the hall.
Flora, shall we continue our game? I had you retreating if memory serves. Actually, I think you might have accidentally knocked over the pieces in confusion when we heard Hedwig scream. No. Oopsie daisy.
I think I've had more than enough entertainment for the night and shall retire to my dormitory. So wait, are they actually talking about chess still? Were they both using it as cover and also actually interested in chess? Or is
Maybe.
it also covering up for something else right now? Huh.
Likewise. Well, at the very least, no one needs to worry about snuffing all the torches out before bed.
Everyone murmured in agreement. The group migrated back toward the dorms. Everyone was yawning by now. A few people said their goodnights to each other before retreating into their rooms. I mimicked these pleasantries the best I could, but my mind was completely elsewhere. I wanted to grab anyone by the shoulders and scream at them that it hadn't been a prank. That I had really seen a goat slaughtered in the hall, and that any missing evidence was obviously the work of some witchcraft. I had half a mind to go stop Darcy going to sleep and ask her about what she had meant about the abbey being haunted. Or perhaps more importantly, tell her that her vision had been perfectly predicted what had happened. I stood in front of my door arguing with myself before finally sighing deeply and stepping inside. My mind was racing, but I couldn't ask anyone to keep pace with me now. Not only was it quite late now, but I had narrowly, miraculously perhaps, avoided being branded a lunatic thanks to a lucky gust of the wind. I flopped onto the mattress. I stared at the ceiling for a few moments, trying to work my breathing back down to a regular pace, trying to unwind the tight strings I could feel around the front of my mind. Rationally, I knew that I should sleep. Even after spending a significant amount of day resting, I was dead tired. But how could I? What if they came back? What if they came here to... I really was tired. I was very, very tired. You see how it does the swiping thing next to the location every time that we leave a scene?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's meant to like remove that indicator when it goes by it.
I don't know.
Anyway, any other thoughts on that? It's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, not sure how it all fits together yet.
I'm sorry that I keep stopping to like chuck out thoughts as we're going around here.
It is valid.
After what couldn't have been more than an hour, I woke with a start and a yelp. After a moment, I realized I was sitting straight up in bed with my fists raised. Sleep may have taken me, however briefly, but I suppose I could at least take some comfort in the discovery that I would have been ready if any attacker had made their way into my room. Whatever good my skinny fist would do against a broadsword, at least. Maybe I could lift them like antennas to heaven.
Title drop.
She said specifically skinny fists. I feel like that was valid. It was dead quiet, save for a light whipping of the wind and a few crows in the distant woods. My eyes adjusted to the darkness after a few moments. I steadied myself and then crept out of bed, sliding my nightgown over my head. I wasn't going to be able to sleep. Not until I could be sure I was safe from whatever horrid creature had menaced me earlier. I placed an ear to the door, just to check if my little squeak upon waking up had alerted anyone. Silence. The stone walls between us were quite thick then. Carefully I opened up my door, and mercifully it wasn't excessively creaky. While there was a little moonlight leaking in through the threshold to the landing, it was far too dark to go exploring without a light. I remembered Eustace and the others had been holding candles when they came to check on things earlier, so surely there must be... I hadn't spent much time in the dormitory's main room. Sure enough, there was a pricket holding a slightly droopy candlestick resting on the simple mantel above the fireplace. I held a hand in front of the iron hearth cover. I couldn't feel much warmth, but I had to try. The cover was quite heavy. Did my utmost not to make a sound as I pulled it out of the way, just enough to peer into the fireplace itself. Sure enough, a little gust of warmth billowed out. The fire had been banked with ash, just as I had done many times in my cell. Carefully, I stretched my hand into the fireplace to brush some of the gray dust off the embers before touching the candlestick to it. Eventually, the wick took, and I had a little light all of my own. I nearly dropped the candle in surprise. A noise had come from one of the adjoining bedrooms. Terrified, I scrambled out of the dormitory as fast as I could, just as one of the doors swung open. I held a hand over the candlestick's flame in an attempt to hide the flickering light. I could hear hushed voices carrying out of the room into the hallway.
Dars! Dars!
And aside, they got candles enough to just do this? Fancy. Did you know that candles were, I don't know about this specific time period. Maybe they were by now, but for quite some time, it wasn't a thing you could just have candles all the time. Candles are not quick and easy to make.
Yeah, I wonder.
And commonly, rush lights would be used, made from rushes that you would set aflame. I suppose it would make sense that folks like the Chronicler and so on would have them for writing in the evenings and so on.
And Hedwig would have had one of her own. Yeah. Yeah, I guess we can just accept that.
It was just an amusing little thing that the history nerd in me was like, oh,
well, actually, candles.
Yeah, exactly.
Dars! Dars!
What?
Where did I put the candle?
Oh, I don't know.
Damn it.
I've got one here. Hang on.
Right here, then. Honestly, what are you like?
Very talented and smart.
No, what I was thinking at this particular moment.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
A moment later, I could see orange light emanating through the threshold and into the hallway. My breath was shallow and ragged as I tried to stay as quiet as possible, and I was still turned at an awkward angle to hide my own candlelight.
Come on, then.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I heard something.
Interesting. So apparently they're not just hanging out there. Like, we had taken the candle someone else had gathered for their use. They're not so popular as to just be left hanging around.
Okay. Maybe it's the ghost. Ooh.
Let's be careful what we joke about, all right?
Who's joking?
Eustace had no answer for this, and turned away from the landing back into the dormitory. I heard a few footsteps and finally a door closing. As stealthily as I could, I left my hiding place and scurried down the hall. As quietly as I could manage, I moved through the hallway toward the spot where the apparition had emerged. I held for a moment as I passed the Misericorde, straining to hear if anyone was behind the door. There was. I couldn't hear them. I continued onward, my heart beginning to beat out of my chest. What was I doing? The way I saw things, I was in danger no matter where I was. That thing could either kill me in my sleep or catch me out in the halls. I was woefully unprepared in either scenario, and perhaps more importantly, I had a wicked sense of curiosity about the whole situation. Oh, perfect for our protagonist. A good thing that you have main character plot armor, so you probably won't die. Probably. I could see like a volume 2 character POV switch or something like that, but I padded over to the spot where I was sure I had seen the figure behead that poor creature. And just as before, no blood. The large door that had given us all a start was still closed, now merely wobbling gently in the lighter wind. Slowly but surely I walked toward the floor, scanning it for any signs of blood. There was nothing. I reached the large wooden door itself. Presumably the swordsman would have had to have left through this doorway into the night to disappear after their hideous ritual. Curiosity got the better of me. With some trepidation, I slowly pushed open the door, hoping that its creaking wouldn't echo down the halls too loudly. I wedged it open just enough to slip through myself, but not again. The force of the door closing blew out my candle. Okay, so that is how they got the... I guess we could just accept that now.
Yeah, that it reliably closes with enough force to blow out candles and torches. That's a good piece of knowledge.
Okay, so that was like the one other part of it that I was having trouble, like, how do you accomplish this, right? So
Two people.
So then if you have someone there to close the door on cue...
Yep.
Then you can reliably make that happen. Interestingly enough, the person who had to do that would probably have had to been outside.
Yeah.
So the person who did that was someone who was not present at that little...
Unless we know there's bunches of secret passageways because of what Margaret told us.
We do.
So it could have been one of the people who later showed up out of their bedroom or something. They might have not been in their bedrooms.
Okay.
Showed up from somewhere else via a passageway that's not commonly known. I could certainly believe there's a way into the dormitories that not everyone knows about.
Yeah, but until we get that piece of information.
Yeah.
Because the problem with like secret passageway thinking is that as soon as you start invoking that without any prior reason, then like...
But we do have prior reason. It's in play. It's been specifically invoked by a
secret
character.
passages have been put in play, but one specifically there. I mean... But yeah, that's a good thought. Anyway, we should at some point reanalyze that scene because in addition to like someone who needed to be close to Eustace and presumably someone who has influence over Darcy, if not Darcy willingly going along with it.
Also the fact that it lined up with Darcy's premonition specifically, so it'd have to be someone who knew about it.
Yeah,
unless it was
either that
coincidence.
or that's like a common... Either that or she had some other reason to be ruminating under that image specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's an image that's come up before or a story that's come up before and she had some reason to remember it then.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it more likely than not that one of the people, because Hedwig got a good look down the hallway before the door had closed again.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anyone on the inside of it, so it had to be someone outside closing the door.
Yep. Darce and Eustace would very well be able to do it. They had the sword. They knew the contents of Darce's vision. They knew that Hedwig had heard it as well.
Yep.
Because you'd have to know that to make it relevant to do that.
But then why would Darcy even bother giving away that part of it?
Makes it seem innocent. I admit I did this part, and that's all that happened. And everybody else has an explanation. I
see. It also explained why Eustace was very, not confrontational, but hesitant to speak with Hedwig earlier. But then again, this doesn't seem like anything more than just a little bit of hazing.
Yeah, because what would the motive be? Why would you do this to someone? Why would you specifically make Darcy's vision thing that Hedwig saw come real, only to Hedwig, not to anybody else? What would the reasoning be? What would you get out of it?
My thought earlier was that it could establish her as an unreliable witness, but that went out the window as soon as the narrative of her playing the joke took hold.
Yeah.
I think the easiest explanation here is that Hedwig and Eustace are probably hazing her, and maybe a third person depending on their movements. But
so that makes this innocent then, and not related to
I do
the
think
killings.
that this is just...
Okay.
Because, like, what else is it meant to be? It's a little obtuse to be about anything else, right?
Yeah.
I think if they were warning her yeah. And perhaps Darcy is more savvy than we give her credit for, as well.
Could be.
Anyway, I right now I'm willing to put my chips on Eustace and Darce, perhaps another person. Like, I would have to go back and rewatch the scene and keep track of where people are coming from and what we see, just to be certain whether or not they would need a third person outside the door. But, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a satisfying explanation. The force of the door closing blew out my candle. Still rattled from the sudden sound, I retreated from the doorway. I stood in near pitch darkness once again, although this time I felt more irritated than terrified. Pale moonlight leaking through the main hallway was all I had left to navigate with. I held a hand against the wall and slowly walked back the way I came. The windows running along the hallway that looked down into the cloister finally came into view, so I at least had some inkling of where I was now. Heading away from that confounded door, I could see the path back to the hall that my old cell was located in. I stood for a moment, taking it in. I felt a supernatural pull toward that old hallway, and as I stepped closer over, I could hear a strange, whistling sound. I felt a chill run up my spine, and decided that I would actually much prefer to be in bed after all. A whistling, so just, I don't know, someone's whistling and having a good time. I headed back to the hallway to the dormitory, past the library and the Misericorde. Out of the corner of my eye, however, I saw a black shape below the landing. There was someone in the cloister. I held my breath and watched as the figure paced around the grass. Their head was down, and I realized that they could not yet see me. They were looking away from the landing, although at what I could not determine. My heart pounding once more, I hid behind a pillar and poked my head around to watch. The figure stood still for a few moments more. A part of me I had never met bade me to stay and observe, too curious to escape just yet. Just who, or what, was this monster? With a dramatic turn, they suddenly left the center of the cloister and disappeared into the shadows around the edge of the lawn. At first, I squinted to try to make out where they were going, until a far more intelligent part of me realized that this creature could be heading up the stairs. I crept onwards as quickly and quietly as I could, back to the imaginary safety of my bed. It was far too strange out in the halls at night. So someone who went out... I wonder if it was someone paying their respects to Catherine again.
Maybe.
Someone else... Because we knew Catherine touched a lot of people's lives while she was there, right?
Yep.
I wonder if it was just someone who was like, Or someone's checking in on the location of the sword? And if they hadn't known before? I made it back inside my small room without a peep, Oh, you could just barely see the window and the stars.
Ha.
I let out a deep, relieved sigh. As well as feeling terrified, I felt a little bit embarrassed. My first investigative venture had ended without so much as a hint of a clue. But I was also terrified. I got onto the mattress once more, but I dared not shut my eyes. Instead, I sat facing the door and removed the candle from the pricket I held. The pitiful metal spike would have to serve as my weapon if that ghoul came to my door. They did not appear. I sat like that all night, clinging steadfast to my weapon and going over everything in my head. Before I knew it, morning had come. I dutifully leapt out of bed and dressed as quickly as I could. As I pinned my cowl together, I mused over the best way to face the day. No, days ahead. I furrowed my brow and concentrated as hard as I could. The mist that had been lingering in my mind since the Superior snatched me out of my cell was evidently there to stay. And if I were to make any forward progress on the task at hand, I would simply have to deal with it. First of all, for the health of my own soul, I would strive to attend all services and meals, no matter how terrified I was. However I may have embarrassed myself on the day prior, it wouldn't do to give up on ingratiating myself to the others. And more to the point, now that I was no longer an anchoress, this is how I would maintain my worship. I would not compromise on this any further than I had already. Mysterious demonic figures be damned. I would not let evil win. I had broken a sacred oath, but I would slip no further. The fear that I felt, the danger that I faced, so be it, I thought. Secondly, Angela was the only sister who didn't show up last night after I had screamed. It was quite possible that she was fast asleep or simply didn't care. But it was, at the very least, something I could follow up on for whenever the Superior next asked if I had any leads. There was plenty else swirling around in my head, but it would have to wait. Oh, the knocking was part of the...
Yep.
Hello?
Just checking.
I opened the door to see that Eustace had already turned to leave, apparently satisfied knowing I was up and about. Darcy saw me and gave me a friendly wave before following her bespectacled friend. A few of the others were shuffling out of the dormitories and into the hallway behind her. They seemed not to have noticed me at all. In the chapel, I tried to find myself a spot in the pews that was neither too close nor too far away from the others to be noticeable.
What are you doing over here all by your lonesome?
So much for that. I smiled weakly at her as she sidled in next to me. Service itself went well. I threw myself into the worship, but I had a lingering feeling of shame that I could not shake during prayer. Between breaking my oath and interrupting a service by vomiting all over the place, I was increasingly worried about my standing in the eyes of the Lord. I worried as hard as I prayed. Perhaps harder if I'm being entirely truthful. It was with some relief that the liturgy ended when it did. The words had been winning out for most of the service. Breakfast consisted of a thin, warm oat pottage. Pottage? Pottage?
I don't...
It was interesting watching the others eat. For the first time, I felt like I was seeing some of my fellow nuns less than completely put together. Little pieces of conversation floated around the table, but for the most part, it was a quiet affair. There was nothing for it. Sister Angela?
What is it, Sister Hedwig?
What were you up to last night?
I slept.
I tried to ignore the snorts and giggles that arose from the others. I turned bright red and returned to my meal. So much for that avenue of investigation.
It's true, I'm sure. She sleeps like a log.
Catherine then leaned over her plate and whispered to me in such a manner that ensured everyone could hear.
Don't worry, Hedwig. You'll get her next time.
Catherine really wants to paint us in this light, doesn't she? I can't tell if she's just like, you go, girl. If she's trying to like, you go, girl us and be like, hell yeah. Hedwig can, Hedwig's got some balls on her. Or if
Sure seems like she believes it, because she's not, in this case, trying to paint it that way to others. She's saying it to us privately.
What are you talking about? She said specifically in a way that so everyone could hear.
Wait. Oh, that ensured everyone could hear. Sorry. I misread that sentence and thought it said that ensured not everyone could hear.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, she seems to be going out of her way to paint us in a particular light.
Interesting.
Yeah. When everyone had finished eating, the superior stood to adjust the table. Everyone shifted in their seats to look more alert, all except for Angela, who had already been sitting with her back perfectly straight throughout the entire meal.
Hedwig, Eustace, if you'd follow me. Angela, clear up if you would.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Abbess. Angela made a show of rising to her feet.
Of course, Abbess.
I could feel her staring daggers into my back as Eustace and I followed the superior outside. She led us inside toward the stairs to the second floor of the main building. Where are we going?
To the library. Eustace is going to help you get started with your work.
Oh. Okay. I thought this, given how much we had narrowed in on Eustace already, I thought this was going a different direction. It was like, is the superior a step ahead of us somehow? Where was she for all of that?
She's got her own private room and stuff, so...
That's true.
She wouldn't even be around. It could be weird if she was.
Not if she was an unseen participant, but like, why would she want to haze her own... Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. Oh, yes, of course. I was the chronicler now, after all. I realized as we crested the stairs that I didn't actually know what that meant.
I have my own work to do, just so you know.
I'm sure Hedwig will only need your assistance with the very basics.
Ah.
The library was a very odd room indeed. I had pictured it as a regimented hall with organized bookshelves lining the walls, perhaps with a long table in the middle for a shared reading space. In reality, it was certainly a room with bookshelves and a table, but it was as if someone had squashed the idea in my head to fit into this second-floor room. The table was off-kilter. The books were scattered across the shelves seemingly at random. It
isn't much.
It's wonderful! I could see Eustace raise an eyebrow to the corner of her eye. I suppose she expected me to balk at the state of the room, but I was thrilled to be in the presence of so much scripture again. Not only that, but there was something about the disorganization that spoke to me. It certainly had the most charm of any of the rooms beyond my cell that I had visited yet. Yeah, what happened to the collection in her cell?
Nah?
Presumably that's still there, like...
Yeah. You surprised me.
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
It is rather topsy-turvy in here.
Oh, don't worry, I have a system. Have I ever lost anything?
I suppose I cannot argue with results.
Okay, so this is the result of... This is how Eustace has it. And that to me speaks to someone who does actually go through the books a lot.
Yep.
And probably does actually read them a lot. And I believe her when she says that she knows where stuff is, right? Like, we know that person.
Yep.
That's right.
Anyway, this desk in the corner, this was Catherine's. You'll be sharing this space with Eustace often, I imagine.
I see. I was led to a little desk in the corner closest to the hallway door. I hadn't noticed it when we'd walked in. The whole thing was obscured by a pile of books and folded up documents. It was almost like I had my own little room, with walls I could peer over.
These large books are what you'll be writing in.
And I will be writing
the events of each day previous, as well as details of any important correspondence.
Oh, right. Of course, chronicling. I tapped my forehead in an attempt to make make a knowing gesture.
Eustace will sort through any mail we receive and put anything important on your desk to be noted. Then you can pass the documents to her for...
Interesting that the mail also goes through Eustace.
Yeah.
Because we know the mail went through Catherine with a C. Right? That's how she had, That's how she had originally had contact with Mr. Foreman. So it might not have been her keeping it from us, but Eustace.
Could be.
Interesting.
Filing.
I have a system.
Well, if you have any more questions, I'm sure Eustace will be happy to assist you. I must go and make my rounds with the other sisters before attending to my own work.
Eustace and I gave bowing nods to the abbess as she left the room. As soon as the door was closed, Eustace shuffled over to her own desk on the opposite side of the room to mine, with its own piles of bric-a-brac threatening to topple over at any minute. I drummed my fingers on the desk for a moment before reaching for one of the massive, empty books the superior had indicated. I opened it up and marveled at the blank pages. For the first time in a while, I felt like I was back where I belonged. That is, until I picked up a quill. I soon realized that without scripture to transcribe, I was at a total loss confronted with white paper. What should I write, do you think?
That's your job, not mine.
Yes, well, it is a bit new to me now that I think about it.
I would have thought you'd given it quite a bit of thought before deciding to leave your cell.
Well, Wasn't Eustace one of the ones we had already kind of let it slip to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to say that I hadn't decided that at all, but I couldn't. Be that as it may, it's a little different actually being here.
Uh-huh.
What are you working on?
Cataloging.
What's that?
It is something that is very difficult to do if someone is talking to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a minute. I stared at the blank pages in front of me again for a moment, feeling a little stung.
Come on, I'll show you.
I hadn't noticed Eustace walking over to my side of the room. She was looking over my wall of books with a no-nonsense expression on her face. I stood up, not wanting to irritate her any further.
The library here houses a lot of scripture, obviously. It also carries many other books and documents. For example, recipes. Or songbooks. Over here we have a little chess section.
A whole section just for chess, huh?
Yep. I didn't intend for it, things just sort of ended up that way.
How's that?
Well, I have a small budget for procuring requests. And some people here got really into chess.
I see. Oh, so maybe
Maybe they really were just playing chess in the Misericorde at night.
I still think you were right on about it being booze, but them also being into chess was an easy way to kind of, yeah.
Let's see, some gardening books, Darcy reads those, obviously. History books, tarot.
What on earth is tarot?
You know, fortune telling.
Fortune telling? Who on earth would meddle with that kind of thing here?
You'd be surprised.
Isn't that anachronistic? Wasn't tarot just a card game until like the 19th century?
Let me find out.
I feel like tarot as cartomancy is a relatively new development.
Tarot cards were likely originated in the 14th or 15th century.
But as a card game, right?
Let me see. Used to play a bridge-like game known as tarocchi, popular at the time among nobles and leisure lovers. Okay. Cards were not regarded as mystical until the late 18th century.
18th century. So I was 1 century off, but
Yeah, so that is in the future, because we're in the 1400s, right?
yeah.
Late 1400s?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not
And-
knocking it, just another thing that jumped out at me.
Yeah, no. That's
Someone
perfectly
who
reasonable.
spent way too much time going down Wikipedia holes about various historical things.
Yeah, I do want to like re-impress upon people that us looking up stuff like this is not meant to be. Is not like we're not trying to CinemaSins this.
I just love history.
Yeah, or like and for me especially, who is not particularly historically literate, this helps me kind of reorient myself with the time. And anyway, I grimaced. The more I discovered about this abbey, the more it felt like it was occupied by a horde of Cerabates?
What the hell is that word?
Your turn. I looked at the last two.
A kind of Christian monk widespread before the time of Benedict of Nursia. They acknowledged no monastic superior, obeyed no definite rule, and disposed individually of the product of their manual labor.
So someone with a very self-interested view of... I guess that's the way that Hedwig here is using it, as someone who is self-interested and not...
Not following the monk rules, the nun rules, and so on.
Okay. Eustace ran her fingers over the spines of some of the books, clearly looking for something.
Ah, here we go. Here's some classical stuff. Greek plays and so on, and, histories. That was all Catherine's department, make no mistake. Actually.
She gestured idly around us with one arm.
most of this place was. She read everything in here at least once, I'd imagine.
Wow. That's impressive.
Well, I've read it all once or twice or more, but yeah, it's fairly impressive.
What's in there? Oh, what's in there?
I pointed.
No, not narrating with Eustace. I pointed at a door off to one side of the room, nestled between messy shelves.
Ah, that's the other half of my job.
Ooh.
Solox.
Do you notice the location just changed again?
Danger.
Danger.
That's interesting.
She produced a ring of keys and inserted one into the door, fiddling with it for a moment before unlocking it with a loud thunk. But back to the library now. Okay. Was that...
Interesting. I don't know if that was on purpose.
I don't know if that was on purpose,
That
but...
seemed like maybe not on purpose.
Huh. Inside was another storage room of sorts, only instead of books it was filled with boxes, chests, and what could only be described as a hoard of miscellanea.
This is where we keep some of the Abbey's more notable possessions. Got some relics.
You have relics here?
Steady on. Nothing particularly interesting. I'm actually not sure how many of them are real.
Oh.
It's a bit of a racket, relics. I don't believe how many people claim they have the holy prepuce
Yep.
in a vault somewhere.
The holy...
It's best you don't ask.
You gonna explain that one, or...?
Jesus's foreskin.
Oh.
Point is, if you took every piece of the true cross on display around the world and put them together, it'd be taller than the Tower of London. And that's just the Christly relics. With saints, it's even more ridiculous. It's my job to confirm the provenance of the relics we hold here, and I'm not holding my breath for any of them.
Oh, so she's like an art gallery person. Or
Relic
someone in like an
curator.
auction house, right? Who's concerned with the provenance of an item. Well, what else do you keep in here?
Well, there's this fella for starters.
She tapped the breastplate of a suit of armor on display in the corner of the little room.
Of course there's a suit of armor.
My heart leapt into my throat. The glint of metal was all too familiar. What is that? Wait, was the person we saw last night wearing armor as
Yep.
well? They were.
Yep.
Did she have to... She had to unlock this door, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So if it's this armor, either she did it or someone else stole her
And
keys.
did it. Either way, in either way, it comes back to she's person in for questioning number one.
Yep.
Ah, suppose you want to know what it is, would you?
Oh, no. I know a suit of armor when I see one. I was just curious if this holds any particular significance.
Yeah, I've been holding it in safekeeping for the Receiver General of some well-to-do estate.
Okay, that also lines up with some of the other stuff we heard about the wine, where it's not necessarily all the abbeys, but
Yeah.
like them holding on to it for well-to-do people. What's a Receiver General?
A well-paid bookkeeper.
Oh. I hazarded another question that I hope would sound casual. And you're the only one with the key to this room. What a responsibility.
Superior also has a key. Got the keys for most things, I should think.
Well, that makes sense. In case this one goes missing.
Steady on. Maybe I have one in case hers goes missing, huh?
But again, okay, so that again goes back to the soup who's being absent, right? But also, what does she get by doing this? I glanced around at the piles of assorted bits and pieces scattered around the room. Of course.
Anyway, that just about wraps up the tour, I think.
Oh, are you keeping the sword in here by any chance? I noticed it was gone from the courtyard. I was there yesterday morning and then gone after evening service. Eustace let out a ragged sigh and pinched the bridge of her nose. When she spoke, she had the unmistakable air of someone choosing her words very diplomatically.
Yes, Hedwig, I am keeping Catherine's sword here. The Superior asked me to move it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go. Both got work to do.
But notably, we don't see it.
Yep.
So if it had been used in last night's shenanigan, then it might not.
Yeah.
She ushered me out into the little room from the little room back into the library. I skulked to my new desk, well aware I'd overstepped some boundary.
The armor is also getting me, because you can't get into and out of a suit of armor very quickly.
We only saw their head, so it might just be the headpiece.
And the glove was mentioned, and I thought other clanking was mentioned, like the footsteps. But it might not be the full suit, you're right.
Yeah, because you wouldn't need a breastplate for that. You would need, like, the gauntlet. Like, I could imagine a scenario where they could make that happen.
Okay. Because I was under the impression it was the full suit, which would make it difficult for that person to then show up right after.
Yeah, exactly. We should go back and see that scene again to see how much of that suit of armor was actually used.
Yeah.
Or how much purportedly was used. Another thing to keep in mind, was it the same suit of armor?
Yep.
Are
Could
there
be
multiple
something
suits?
else.
That doesn't seem like there's many swords hanging around. It seems like that seemed to be the sword. But is like I don't know if there's multiple suits of armor. We don't really know about that. But with what we have here, it seems like it came from there, didn't it?
Yep.
Why was she choosing her words diplomatically about the sword?
I would think anybody would choose their words diplomatically when the memorial for their beloved's murdered friend was taken down and they were told you have to move this elsewhere.
I see. So she doesn't want to put herself, she doesn't want to receive the blame from having moved it.
Yeah, and also is upset about it and doesn't want to sound upset.
I see. If she's that upset about it, would it have been in too much poor taste for her to use the sword in that shenanigan?
I don't know.
Eustace sat at her own desk and began sifting through pieces of parchment. Occasionally, she would scribble something in a ledger. From the sound of it, she was taking some feelings out on the paper. Why don't you read what Catherine wrote for inspiration?
Yeah.
I tapped my own quill against the empty book in front of me. I hadn't the foggiest idea what to write, but I needed to do something. I suppose the date was as good a place to start as any. Excuse me, but what is the date today?
It's the 11th of November.
Thank you. Oh, fiddle. I wrote today's date, but I'm writing about yesterday.
So just cross it out.
Right, okay. 10th of November. On the 10th of November. Well, a lot happened, didn't it? I felt a flash of inspiration when I thought about all the things I could write about my life. What the Superior had forced me to do, how awkward I had felt being thrust into a double life. But of course I could not do that. I had to focus on the basics, which was harder than it sounded. How did Catherine like to write things?
I do have my own work to do, Hedwig.
I know, I'm just, not sure how to best write things down. Eustace kept scribbling something in her ledger, not answering. Could I take a look at her old chronicles, perhaps?
No, you can't.
Why?
Because I don't have them anymore.
Where are they?
Why are you so intent on pestering me about Catherine?
I just... It started sniffling. I couldn't help it. I bit my lip and tried to control myself, but it was too late. Eustace kept writing in her ledger. It was so quiet I could hear a tear hitting the parchment at the desk in front of me. I wasn't trying to be a pest.
Oh, don't be so modest. You're quite good at it.
I lurched out of my chair. The precarious pile of books on the desk wobbled, and I could hear glass shattering as I flounced away, sobbing uncontrollably. I fumbled my way deeper into the library. I didn't know where I was going, and I just wanted to get away.
Hedwig, come back.
I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't listen. I ran into the rows of shelves, not paying any attention to where I was going. Even if I had been, it would have been hard to see. I was bawling by that point with my eyes scrounched up and full of tears. I stumbled around blindly. A few books fell off their shelves as I brushed past. I found a corner of one of the aisles and fell to a crouch, curling into a little ball and burying my head between my knobby knees. It was all coming out. The embarrassment, the shame, the anger, and the fear. Not sure it was even Eustace's snippy comment that really did me in. Eustace was far less intimidating than a disappearing swordsman, but nevertheless, here I was. It was really quite dark back here. I couldn't tell how far I had gotten into the bookshelves. The library had no windows. All light emanated from a simple chandelier above the desks and table. I tried to dry my face with my robe. It didn't do much considering I was still crying. For a while, I bumped around in the dark, hoping to just stay out of Eustace's earshot. It wasn't long until I staggered into one of the shelves, though, sending books cascading onto my head like a hail. I yelped in surprise.
Hedwig?
I looked up to see Eustace standing above me. She looked quite worried.
Listen, I'm really sorry, Hedwig. Would you come back to your desk?
Eustace crouched down next to me and took my hands in hers. She squeezed them gently.
I shouldn't have been so rude to you just then. It's not your fault. It's okay. I understand. Let's go and talk about it at our desks, yeah?
No. No, you don't understand. No one does. No one can.
You're inquisitive because you've never been outside your cell before. It's really not your fault. I'm having a hard time with losing Catherine. Don't know how to handle questions about her.
It's not just that, it's...
What else is there?
I looked up at Eustace's face. It was hard in the dark, but I could make out a weary attempt at a reassuring smile flickering on her lips. Nothing. Nothing that'd do to say now, I suppose. I'm all over the place, just in total. Eustace's smile grew, but she looked altogether sadder. She reached out to adjust my messy cowl, then stood up, guiding me back to a standing position with her hand.
Come on, up you go. Let's go back, yeah?
I nodded, still sniffling.
Listen, I really am sorry. I was being quite cruel.
It's all right. Don't keep apologizing. You sound just like me. I laughed feebly at my own joke. I just wanted to show that there weren't hard feelings, even if it was far too early to really know that. Eustace patted me on the shoulder and sat me down in my chair, then adjusted some of the wobbly books back into a slightly less precarious position.
That sword killed her, you know. That's why I was a bit tetchy.
Yeah, the superior told me as much. I was just curious because... Why was the sword left out there? In the cloister, I mean. It seems so dangerous to leave that sort of thing around. Especially when it had just been used to,
I could see why you'd find it strange, but I think there's a good object lesson for you here. You're not wrong that it's a little odd to leave a sword lying around. But that's because you're an outsider. Listen.
Eustace's voice had returned to its usual monotone register once we'd gotten back to our desks, and she reached out sharply to tilt my chin up without a shred of the tenderness she'd used amidst the bookshelves.
Inside and outside aren't value judgments. We're all outsiders to someone. I dare say we'd both feel out of place in Persia.
I see. You're saying I don't know the customs?
Something like that. It might be something even harder to define than customs. History, perhaps.
I didn't expect to feel this alone. We're all Catholic, after all.
I think one of the first things you'll pick up on is how little that matters.
I think I'm already there. Halfway, at least.
I'm sure you had a very specific idea of what life was like for us when you were in your cell that is being challenged by reality.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yet, you're completely correct. Everyone here is Catholic. We're all oblates.
And yet after only one day, I've heard cursing, filthy jokes, and downright meanness from the mouths of my sisters. I flushed a little. Not to drag our fight out. I do accept your apology.
That's all right. You're not wrong, but that also doesn't make anyone in here less Catholic.
Well, it certainly seems like not many people are holding to the letter.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't it?
No, I don't think it does. The church encompasses the world so wholly. It's very hard not to be a part of it to some degree.
I'm not sure I understand.
Do you like money?
Truth told, I have never held any money.
Bad example then, perhaps.
No, try to explain.
You at least understand the concept of money, right?
Of course.
Do you think money is fair?
I think that money certainly creates opportunity for unfairness, so in that sense, I'd say it's quite a bad thing.
Wow, okay, that's further than I was expecting you to go, actually.
Well, that certainly happens a lot in the Bible. In fact, Eustace held up her hands and chuckled softly.
No need to quote Ecclesiastes at me? Ecclesiastes?
Yep, Ecclesiastes.
No need to quote Ecclesiastes to me. I understand how you got there.
I was going to quote Matthew, actually.
1924?
No, 624.
Oh, well, actually, that's a great way to illustrate my point.
Fucking. Nemo potet duobus dominus serveri aut edim unum odio habebit et alternum delegit aut unum sustenebit et alternum contentmet non potestis deo servere et mammonae.
You cannot serve. No one can serve two masters without hating one. Something. I forgot the rest of it. You can't serve both God and Mammon. Classic Bible verse.
I see. Except for Arlecchino, the clown sometimes the two masters.
Ye be not able to serve God and riches.
Mammon.
Mammon is riches.
Yes, I suppose, a demon of riches. Not inserting Mammon voice, not inserting Mammon voice.
Do you think that Mammon is a being? You don't think it's a metaphor?
Well, what's the difference?
Good answer, actually. Anyway, we both agree then that you cannot worship money and God.
Of course.
But we are nuns. We tend to the poor, theoretically at least. Would it be wrong for the poor to covet money?
Covet, I think, is a strong word.
But they are poor. Poor exists because rich exists because poor exists. They are opposite ends of a spectrum that governs their day-to-day lives. How could a poor person not covet money? Food, clothes, shelter. Things provided by lords who have a lot of money, which is provided to them by kings who have even more.
So you're saying that everyone worships riches? Nobody is truly Catholic? Excuse me. Oh my gosh.
No, I'm saying that money is as essential as air to people who want to live in this world. And when money is scarce, the church provides for them. We provide for them by extension. You know that money is evil. You understand the inequality money inherently causes, and the ways in which the Bible describes this. Yet if you were to leave tomorrow, if you struck out on your own to live a life in London or what have you, how would you without money? Who would ever provide for you but the church?
I am afraid I don't quite understand.
The church is air. If nobody here was Catholic, none of them could breathe.
I didn't really know what to make of this. Eustace had certainly practiced this expression of her worldview, but I didn't fully understand what it was she was talking about. Partially because I was still slightly dazed and over-emotional, but more because it sounded very convenient. Is she getting at the fact that, like, there's a certain normative part of having to live life in this world? And in doing so means that you will have to come into contact with systems of money. You can't ever fully remove yourself from it as long as this is the world we live in.
Yeah, I think something like that. And much like, regardless of what you believe about money, you have to use it to eat food and live and so on. Same with the church. This is not a world where there are multiple churches and people pick between them, and then they go home on Sunday
Right.
afternoon when they're done and live out the rest of their lives. This is the world where one gigantic, all-encompassing church is stitched into every facet of life in Europe.
So whether or
from
not
birth
you're
to death.
Catholic,
So whether or not you're Catholic, you are Catholic. It's not a thing that, it's not an expression of identity that I chose this belief and joined this church and practiced this thing because it's what spoke to me. It's just how you live.
that's one of those things that you have to come into contact with no matter what you do.
And more than come into contact with, it's just how you live.
Yeah,
You are a part of it.
It's just a necessary, an inviolable cornerstone of reality for them.
Things that
this.
seem odd to our modern separation of church and state, modern nation states,
Yep.
society, although the money part certainly doesn't.
Yeah. Gonna say.
Eustace had
Fuck. Wrong voice.
Eustace had clearly practiced this. Oh, right. Convenient. This was a very dim view of the church and faith. Does that make sense? I understand what you're trying to say, at least. Well, I'm glad I did it some justice, at least. Catherine's version was a lot clearer. That was something Catherine said? Paraphrase, but more or less. Catherine could talk about 3 times longer than I could on the subject. Most subjects, to tell you the truth. I tend to ramble. I will have to think about all this. That is a most interesting opinion for the Abbey's chronicler to hold. Eustace had turned to walk back toward her own desk. Like I've already told you, Catherine was a very interesting person. I should have liked to have met her.
Not revealing that she thinks she has. Interesting.
Also doesn't explain why her chronicles aren't here for us to read.
Yeah, why are they missing? Where are they?
She sat back down at her desk and began working in her ledger again. The same old Eustace had fully returned. The same her chronicles are gone then. I could learn a lot from them, it sounds like. I picked up my quill and began writing. This conversation had certainly been illuminating, inspiring even, although not in the sense that I wanted to write like Catherine. To tell you the truth, I couldn't believe Eustace was relaying whatever Catherine's opinion had been fairly. It certainly did nothing to shake the idea that I was in the midst of a group of Cerebates rather than Benedictines. So I guess if Cerebate means someone who is not particularly taking the tenets of the faith seriously or kind of doing their own thing, and Benedictines being people who are known for following stuff to the letter.
Benedictines are the specific flavor of monk and nun that I believe is still most popular to this day. They follow the rules of the rule of Saint Benedict, a specific set of tenets that are laid out for how you would go about running an abbey, what sort of duties the monks and nuns would have, and so on.
And
How
that's
you
what
worship.
she expected things to be like on the outside.
Yep, because they are.
Yeah.
They just don't live like it.
Yeah.
And there's other types like Franciscans and so on, and I don't remember all the differences between them, but Benedictines, I believe, are the most common historically and presently.
Well, there you go.
So I felt that for now, I should chronicle things in as uplifting and holy a manner as I could. I would log the daily activities, liturgies, mealtimes, and so on. And I would highlight all the godly deeds I witnessed throughout the day. I would reason that this would be healthier than listening to the decidedly ungodly things I had noticed. I would search for the positive, as it were. Are there any letters I need to transcribe in here today? Not today, nope. How much mail does come through here? Loads of it. Who for? Eustace peered at me over her glasses witheringly. Most everyone, I should think. There isn't much else to do here. Well, then who writes the most? You're being nosy. I'm just curious. You ever know who has a gift for writing? It's Catherine with a K, if I had to guess. Catherine 1. She's, very popular. Really now? How interesting. I suppose. There's no accounting for taste. A thought crossed my mind.
You sure that there's nothing I could help with? Are there any letters that Catherine II was supposed to sort? I could take a look, if there were.
There are not.
Really?
I've already taken care of any unopened mail in Catherine's possession.
Interesting. So if Catherine is who we suspect she was,
Mm-hmm.
the person from the introduction, that might have contained correspondence about, say, killing the King of England. Right? And if Eustace has gone through her mail... I see. In that case, I think I might be finished. Eustace rose from her chair and walked over to mine. She leaned over my shoulder, holding her spectacles against the bridge of her nose, and she read aloud.
10th November of the year of our Lord, 1482. The hours were observed in morning and evening liturgies. Luncheon was held in the rectory, as was supper. We actually had breakfast as well, but I suppose you weren't there for that.
Breakfast before liturgy?
Sometimes. Vacant position of dearly beloved chronicler fulfilled. Rest in peace. Oh, that's nice. By myself. A kindness was visited upon me by Sister Moira. What was that?
Well, she prayed with me in the bathhouse when I was feeling lost.
Huh. Well, if it mattered to you, is that all you're writing?
For now, I think. I will probably go a little longer as I find my footing.
Fair enough. Catherine would fill a whole page, that much I can tell you.
A full page for each day?
Yeah, sometimes more. You don't have to do it that way, of course, but you're asking about what her writing was like.
No, that's very helpful. Well, what now?
I have work to do still. You can do as you please.
I think I might walk around and check in on some of the others then. Maybe I could fill up pages hearing what others are accomplishing.
Not a bad idea.
I stood up to leave. Before I could step away, however, Eustace gripped me by the shoulders. She looked into my eyes with a gaze even more serious than the one she'd used in the garden.
I need you to promise me something, Hedwig.
Yes?
Never go wandering around back there on your own. Can you do that for me?
Back?
Into the bookshelves. Not without me.
I don't understand. She squeezed my shoulders even tighter.
Could borrow anything you want from the library, of course, but I can't have you going back there without my assistance. Better yet, just ask me what you need to get for you. My organization system is, precarious. Does that make sense?
Not really, but...
Some books here are very, very important and very, very valuable. I'm sworn to protect them, and my organization system is precarious, as you have seen. Be a weight off my mind if I didn't have to worry about anyone else rummaging around back there.
Oh, of course. I shan't touch anything.
Thank you.
Or something is hiding.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that... Because I guess on the face of it, that sort of kind of makes sense. Like, you literally just knocked into a bookshelf and knocked a whole bunch of books over that I now have to go sort, right?
Yep, and that are priceless, handwritten things.
In an era where books like that are not replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah. I guess on the face of that makes sense. But also, what is she hiding back there?
Who knows?
Is it just simply that there are books she doesn't want her to see? It seems like it'd be hard to hide anything except books back there. Or is there like a secret passage back there? Anyway. Let me assure you, as the door closed behind me, I felt a flare of embarrassment. I was just treated like a total fool, I thought. I had half a mind to turn back around and tell Eustace to stuff her sentimental stories about Catherine and show me the sword under lock and key. Yeah, because she's already thinking about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, of course. And thank goodness for that, honestly. What? No, I won't explain what I mean just yet. Let me tell you something about... Actually, no, let's unpack that for a moment. Thank goodness that she hadn't done that, because that would have caused Eustace... Would that have... Forcing Eustace to show her that would have either...
There's going to be another killing. And it would have put Hedwig under more suspicion. That's my guess. Somebody else is going to die.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
What if... this has been setting up Eustace to be suspicious. What if Eustace is the one that gets killed next?
I think we think Eustace is involved in the hazing prank, but I don't think we suspect her of killing.
Right, but I'm not saying what we suspect. I'm saying what's being set up.
Yeah. The game is kind of going to a lot to set Eustace up as like someone trying to intimidate us, but while she's definitely person number one, she isn't necessarily responsible, since someone could have stolen the key from her, or she could have let someone else in. But she's probably involved in the prank, but I think we just think it's a prank. Anyway. Let me tell you something about that chronicler position. It might have taken a fair bit, but it did teach me a thing or two about spinning a good story. Anyway. The cool air of the hallway hit my face hard after being in the stuffy library for so long. I could feel the damp patches around my eyes and cheeks where my tears had been drying. I wiped my face with my sleeve to try and erase any lingering evidence.
Oh, fancy running into you here.
Moira was standing just down the hall, carrying a tray adored with a small pitcher and some sliced rye.
I was just on my way to bring you and Eustace some nunchin.
Nunchin?
Oh, of course you wouldn't have had that before. It's just a snack between meals.
Nunchin. Nun-lunchin.
Yeah.
Moira's one of us! Is that allowed?
Allowed? Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
I looked to the side nervously. For what, I'm not really sure. A disapproving superior? Or worse, Angela? Moira chuckled again and set the tray down on the stone railing, overlooking the cloister, and then gestured for me to join her. The little pitcher was full of wine, and there were pieces of crumbly cheese mixed in with slices of bread.
You can dip the bread in the wine if you'd like.
Moira was the one who was going to great lengths to try to ingratiate herself to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or ingratiate us to her, sorry. And okay. We don't have any leads on who might have been poisoning us, if that's what was the case. All right. But if after this encounter we start bombing again in the evening, we should tuck that away. I picked up a piece of bread and dunked it into the pitcher. The wine turned it an odd color that reminded me a bit of bile on flagstone, but resisted lingering on it too long and popped it into my mouth. That's quite nice, actually.
It's called sops. Everyone here loves it more or less.
And the cheese?
Goat cheese from one of the ones Darcy takes care of. The goats that Darcy takes care of that we have here, goats.
Son of a gun! It really just does come back to those two. But again, if it's just nothing more than a prank, then...
Yeah.
It also feels a bit too easy.
Yeah.
Like, is there an angle on this that we're missing?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Because, like, at first I was like, okay, no, we put together what needs to go where and who needs to grab it. But the game also seems to be throwing that in our face over and over again. So is there an angle to this that we haven't accounted for? That they might have needed an accomplice? Keep thinking it over, I suppose. I tried a piece and it was also delicious. This might be a silly question, but all this food, is it different from what I was served? I took all my meals on myself, but I don't remember any of it tasting quite this good. It's very Godspeed track here, isn't this?
Yeah. Well, we do a lot of cooking with ingredients from the stores in the pantry, and we have to make things last. Maybe you just got unlucky most of the time. Things don't always taste this fresh. Or maybe, well...
Huh?
Oh, nothing. I was just thinking that maybe it tastes so much better because you're not in your cell anymore.
I don't understand.
Moira took a piece of cheese and chewed it thoughtfully.
A new lease on life and all that. Nothing tastes better than freedom.
Everyone calls it our cell.
Mhm.
Everyone talks of it as if we had been freed from it.
Yeah.
No one seems to have volunteered the idea that maybe, we liked it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we had come out to do this new job, that maybe, like, we don't think upon that time poorly. Everyone seems to assume that it must have been being kept like a prisoner.
Well, one thing to note is that it's being called a cell is just the term for that sort of thing.
You're
so there
right,
is
you're
that
right.
part. But there is definitely still this thing of everyone thinks she's stoked to be free. And she
Yeah.
does not seem that stoked to be free. She was in there voluntarily.
My first instinct was to chide Moira for this comment, but I resisted. Instead, I chose to act the part and say something I imagined someone who belonged to this group of women might say. I would imagine Catherine disagrees that we're free up here.
And I suppose by that logic,
Eating outside the monastery would taste even better.
I was actually going to say that a king's food must taste impossibly good.
I was on my way to that conclusion as well, although I think we might have been approaching it from different angles.
But I like the way you think. We should plan a picnic sometime, you and me. We should propose it to the superior.
Trying to get us alone, huh? I see you, Moira. It's a lovely idea. Moira clasped my hands in hers and beamed. Did she have any of the wine?
I don't know. We haven't seen her eating this because she brought it for us.
That's true.
Oh,
So
what?
she had some of the cheese.
Okay. Oh, what fun it always is to have someone new here.
She let me go and lifted up the tray again.
I must be getting the rest of this to Eustace. Where are you off to next, Busy Bee?
I am not sure, actually. I feel like I should sort of make the rounds, so to speak, get to know what everyone does around here.
Grand. Darcy and Charity are busy in the kitchens right now, I think, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind you poking your head in. I'm sure someone's in the cellars around now if you want to learn about the wine. Oh, so many options. Go forth and explore, I say.
Explore I shall. I smiled and bowed my head, and then clicked ahead before reading the rest of the line. I smiled and bowed my head, then excused myself to head downstairs. I selfishly opted against bothering the cooks while they were busy with something I'd be eating later, and I instead headed toward the stairs. I made my way down to the cloister and through the downstairs hall. I decided that I might poke my head into the undercroft.
Well, look who it is. Hello, Hedwig.
Hello.
Done with chronicling already?
Yes, actually, there wasn't much to write about yesterday, really.
Wasn't there? Did you make sure to immortalize your grand prank?
No.
Really now, I'm surprised. I would have thought that was the whole point. Yes, how will anyone know it happened?
Well, I mostly wrote about the important things, the services, the meals, and so on.
Those are the important things? Huh. Give yourself a little credit, Hedwig.
I'll add it in tomorrow, perhaps.
You should. Otherwise, we'll all forget about it eventually. Or pretend we forgot about it. Oh, or pretend we forgot about it. That's right. In war, one must keep score, or so Adela keeps telling me.
Really? In war, one must keep score, so Adela keeps... What's going on between them, then?
I don't know.
War?
Relax, we are definitely not planning a counterattack to your door prank.
Convincing.
Yes, we've just been discussing faith and whatnot. The Nicene Creed and its many subtleties.
Oh, how interesting. Which ones? Which subtleties?
Filioque.
Oh, that's... Suppose I want to count that as a subtlety, but that would be my contribution.
Why no... Ow. I couldn't agree more, Hedwig.
Let's look over that one more time there. What's happening here?
The Nicene Creed, being a specific creed of the Catholic Church that dates back quite some time. It was first adopted at the First Council of Nicaea in 325
Okay.
AD.
Interesting. And what's filioque, then?
Filioque means and the son, It's one of the words in it.
Got it.
But the statement goes like in English like so. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. This is much longer than I remembered, so I won't read the whole thing. I'm going to skim for the bit that says filioque. It's probably from the we believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son. With the Father and the Son, he is worshipped and glorified.
I see. Oh, and the Son.
Yep.
Filioque. Okay. Aha. Got it.
I have a habit of understating things. For effect, you understand.
All right. So what are they actually talking about then? Are they actually talking about... Do you think Margaret was just making a little sly comment about like we're definitely not running a retaliatory prank, just kind of like letting it be at that, or?
Interestingly, a bit of context to the last thing that came up that I wasn't aware of, but just learned, but should probably cut in on. So sorry to jump back like 10 seconds.
No, go for it. This is what this is for.
The filioque was added. Originally, it said from the Father. And let's see, it was incorporated into Roman Catholic liturgical practice hundreds of years later, in like the 11th century. And the Eastern Orthodox churches did not recognize it and did not use the filioque.
Weird.
So that one specific word was controversial, to say the least.
Oh, so that is actually a legitimate subtlety and not just them trying to...
Yeah, they could... It is a thing that conceivably some folks might talk about, the theological disputes between Roman Catholic theology and Orthodox theology.
Got it.
And what this term means differently. What's different about the way the Catholic view of the Holy Spirit and from where it proceeds and so on.
Well, there you go. Thank you for that illuminating history. I do believe it's your turn to read your lie, though.
Didn't I read this line?
Oh, maybe.
Naturally. The pair smiled at me, and I could sense that they were politely ushering me onward so they could continue whatever conversation they'd actually been having. I decided to press a little further, however. What have you two been up to today? I decided I'd see what the other work around here is like since I finished so early.
Well, there isn't exactly much almoning to do up on this hill, so I've been helping out in the cellars.
Almoning?
Yeah, she's one of the almoners.
Oh, right. Passing out alms and stuff.
Yep.
Sorry, I saw the word in my mind. It was like almonds?
Almonding.
Oh, what have you been doing? Catherine and Margaret exchanged a glance.
This, more or less. Not to sound like our dear friend Eustace, but that's a euphemism. Well, not entirely. If something needs lifting, they'll shout.
They being Marta and Flora?
Typically, yes. But more often than not around here, helping in the cellars really just means, well, nothing. Standing around, gossiping, wandering around the cloister for a bit.
And the superior doesn't mind this?
Now, steady on. We wouldn't be telling you this if we thought you'd blabber on to her about it.
I won't. I was just worried you might get in trouble.
It's never really been much of an issue. Soup can't be everywhere. That would be very damp.
Really? I've been at soup before.
And let's keep it that way,
Of course.
I wonder if they're kind of testing the waters with Hedwig to see how much she could be trusted with.
Probably.
Because this is like kind of a low commitment little thing. Like, and if it gets out, worst case scenario, they just have to find somewhere else to buck off to while they're at the cellar time, right?
Yep.
So.
Lovely. I knew you could be trusted. I've always said I had a good feeling about her, haven't I, Catherine? That's right, she has.
I couldn't help but be filled with a gush of pride at this remark, but I did my utmost to tamp it down. Well then, I'll just leave you to do your important work, shall I?
Until next time. See you at luncheon, Hedwig.
I parted with a gracious smile and walked toward the corridor of barrels I had found Adela and Flora in the day before. And to find out what happens there, we'll have to come back next time.
Next time.
Next time. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Again, make sure if you're talking about spoilers in the comment section, you use Rot 13. If this is your first time through and you want to theorize along with us, please let us hear your thoughts. But if you know what's going to happen, please refrain. That's all I got for you. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you for the next one.
Peace, y'all.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.